Hey guys, I've got a question for you. Is the 18-105 the best value lens for video on a Sony camera? Wait, no. My notes say I should be telling you that. Damn it. Okay, then how about we do a whole bunch of testing? I'll show you some cinematic footage and we can string everything together with some questionable humor. Sound good? Then let's pass to Future Dave for the overview. Thanks, Past Dave, you stupid moron. So, what are we going to cover? We will start with the basics before getting into a wide range of tests. You've got timestamps for everything we're going to cover here and in the description. Plus, stick around until the end for conclusions and outtakes. And if you enjoy the video, then please like, subscribe, and I would love to hear your thoughts and questions in the comments. Now, are you ready to talk basics? The list price of this lens is £529, but you're going to find it much cheaper at most retailers. So somewhere around 400 to 450 is a more realistic reference point. For that money, you get a wide zoom range of 18-105. This is an APS-C crop lens, so we multiply those by 1.5 for the full frame equivalent focal lengths of 27 to 157.5. The maximum aperture of f4 is constant across that entire range, which is great for video. You also get the usual manual zoom and manual focus rings, as well as more video-friendly features like built-in stabilization and power zoom for smooth motorized zoom control. Definitely more successful than my homemade motorized hairbrush. Disappointing, unlike the field of view with this lens. The widest angle here is nice for landscapes and captures enough for scene setting or giving perspective before jumping into that big zoom range. For vlogging, it's probably a little tight, but workable when handheld, especially if you hold just the tip. Thank God none of that sentence sounded like a euphemism. Keeping things far less suggestive, you'll get better results with a few extra inches and maybe involving a gorilla. I could have phrased that better. In this case, using a GorillaPod or similar to extend your grip can give you a decent vlogging angle. The tightest end of the zoom range gives you more reach than a basketball player at the supermarket high shelf. This can create some cool cinematic close-ups and help you get shots of objects or wildlife you can't otherwise reach. And of course, you can set your focal length anywhere in the middle of that range to get a wide variety of shots. A major strength of this lens. Another big strength is stabilization. The lens has OSS, which here stands for optical steady shot, rather than my octagonal salt sculpture. It represents salt and octagons. Postmodern. OSS is more than smooth enough for any basic camera moves. It keeps things nice and steady at the tight end of the zoom range, and generally it's among the best in-lens stabilization that I've tried. It's even good enough for walking and vlogging, definitely giving much better results than the in-body stabilization on Sony cameras, and providing a genuinely good vlogging solution for a camera with no stabilization, like the A6400 we are using here. Like a chainsaw juggler, it's not going to do great if you start running, and it won't give you results as steady as a gimbal, but for other situations, the OSS is as smooth as Morgan Freeman reading you a bedtime story. You can use the 18-105 on a body which records gyroscopic data like the A7C, and then use catalyst browse stabilization. But ensure that steady shot is turned off with this lens specifically, otherwise no gyro data gets recorded. So the lens gives you smooth stabilization, but what about smooth bokeh? At the wider focal lengths, bokeh is pretty modest and unremarkable. It looks okay for vlogging, but nothing great. However, the bokeh is smooth as you get to the tighter zoomed in shots and gives an attractive painterly transition into backgrounds. Painterly transition. That sounded more pretentious than when I claimed to be more influential than Henry VIII, but it is true, and like old Henry, the bokeh is satisfyingly round. That is thanks to the 7-bladed circular aperture in the lens, and when you're really zoomed in or fully defocused, your bokeh will have more smooth balls than an Olympic manscaping contest. So our beautiful blurry bokeh is kind of bland at wider angles, but gets tasty when zoomed in and can definitely deliver quality cinematic shots. But how about design and build quality? The 18-105 is pretty light and compact for a lens with this range of capabilities at around 427 grams and 11 centimeters in length. That is smaller than most squirrels and much less attracted to my nuts. You know, these things don't really do anything for lenses. That size is fixed with all the zoom movements happening internally, This is great for usability in general, and especially if you're balancing on a gimbal or setting up a rig. However, bear in mind it's just big and heavy enough that you'll need to move from entry-level to higher capacity gimbals. This won't balance on my Zhiyun Crane M2, but works great on my Moser Aircross 2. The lens feels solid and well built with metal construction, like Schwarzenegger playing the Terminator, and it has a nice feel in the hand, like Hey, I'm not reading that. The action of the power zoom rocker and the manual zoom ring are both smooth, satisfying, and give a good level of control. The manual focus ring is a bit more resistant and tougher to use for one-handed operation. You might ask, what are you zooming in on that requires one-handed operation? To that, I say, let's talk about manual focus. The slight resistance and inconsistency of the focus ring, combined with quite a large rotation range from furthest to closest focus, makes manual focus a decent rather than great experience. Much like substituting lemonade for alcohol. Sobering. However, it will still do the job and all your manual focus moves are still achievable. You can get some really nice manual focus pulls with a little attention and effort. Minimum focus distance is around 15.5 centimeters at the widest end, but increases to around 80 centimeters at the tightest zoom. So factor that into your shot planning. Autofocus is a similar story of largely working really well, but with a few imperfections. For tracking people, the autofocus is fast, follows well, and makes smart choices when faces are obscured. It follows me well here, even as I move around like a drunk man recovering from leg surgery. You can use touch tracking for some nice rack focus results, which look great, but the user experience here can be a bit inconsistent. On both the A6400 and A7C, there were occasional instances of hunting for focus when changing subject. Not great, but still smoother than me changing subject in polite conversation. That really is fascinating. So, have you had any diarrhea recently? And similarly, autofocus let me down a few times when zooming. You can see it failing to recognize and stick with the subject at center frame here. Manual focus might not always solve this problem, since the focus point isn't always exactly the same across the focal range, depending on the distance of the subject, as you can see here. To be clear, autofocus does work really well most of the time, and these things are definitely manageable, but just be aware of the potential rough edges. How about zoom, given that zoom range is a big selling point of this lens? You can get a massive variety of focal lengths in one place, creating a diverse range of shots with no need to change lens. The zoom from widest to tightest can be amazing for revealing the context around a subject or drawing attention to something you've picked out from the wider environment. The telephoto end of the lens gives you enough reach that you can get a bit of wildlife as well as distant objects, which might be nice to add flavor to your scene setting sequences. And it's all much better than the zoom that I'm used to from work meetings. Yeah, my camera's not working, but don't worry, I'm totally paying attention to all your valuable comments. However, beware of rolling shutter when you're fully zoomed in. If you try to move too fast, you can get an image more wobbly than Kim Kardashian jumping on jelly. This is less noticeable on the A7C than the A6400, but still apparent, so if you're zooming in, try to keep movement slow to avoid the wobble. Another area where my testing showed differences between cameras when using this lens was low light. Here, the maximum aperture of f4 definitely impacts performance. This was not built as a low light lens. On the A6400, you need to push towards ISO 6400 or higher to get autofocus working in low light, at which point you'll have an image as soft, mushy, and unattractive as my lockdown six-pack. Grim. The A7C fares better with nicer image quality at these higher ISO levels, but can still lose autofocus on occasion. When you're using manual focus, you can lower ISO a little, but not too much if you still want enough exposure. The lens just isn't capturing that much light at f4. But you can still get nice results in low light, and When you're doing focus pulls, you're heavily zoomed in or similar, the bokeh you get is really pleasing. So this lens can do an okay job in low light, but if you're regularly shooting in darker conditions, then a wider aperture alternative is a better long-term solution. So let's summarize what you get with this lens. A great range of focal lengths with constant aperture and smooth, flexible zoom. Nice build quality, a manageable fixed size and weight, and genuinely impressive stabilization. This lens can cover everything from vlogging to product shots to cinematic landscapes and close-ups, but it probably won't excel in all those situations, and it definitely won't excel in low light. You also need to pay attention to work around those rough edges we discussed. For the price, if you want a solid all-round lens with great versatility, then this can be an excellent choice. If I had to get a wide variety of shots with one lens or choose my first lens for a Sony camera, I think this would be my pick. Whether it's the right pick for you depends on what you shoot. Let me know down in the comments along with any questions or thoughts. So, is this the perfect lens? Hell no. But is it the best value lens for video for you? Hell maybe. And on that decisive note, we are done for today. Thank you so much for watching, especially making it all the way to the end. If you enjoyed the video, then like, subscribe, and until next time, take it easy. Looks like you've got a bit of ice on your ass, my friend. I'm not going to judge, it's a strong look, but the main thing is that you should be aware.